per month. This is, it's never happened before. And look, history's been made here. But it comes alongside the largest drop in unemployment rate in a single year on record.
The Senate in history of the United States has been amazingly and extraordinarily productive. 20 months into the Democratic majority, I just want to take a moment to highlight the many, many accomplishments we have secured in this chamber under Democratic leadership. It's the most in recent memory. The American Rescue Plan, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Bill, the CHIPS and Science Act, the Gun Safety Bill, the Inflation Reduction Act, an omnibus package, and many other bills in between. Senate Democrats have worked hard every step of the way to improve the lives of American people, to help those in the middle class stay there, to help those struggling to get into the middle class a little easier to get there. And we will continue to do our work for the American people this week by passing a CR to keep the government open.
Benefits have lost around 40% of their buying power. One of the biggest proposals in the works is an increase in benefits for people who are ages 80 and older. Not only will this help older adults maintain buying power, but it will also provide a boost for retirees who are running low on savings. And while nothing is set in stone, this plan does propose increasing benefits by around 5%. And it's one of Washington's most divisive proposals, as only 53% of Americans, 53% of Republicans are in favor of voting for it. So if the Republicans decide to block this stimulus check, that means we won't be getting any stimulus payment if President Biden can't get this past the Republicans. But hopefully everybody he can, because President Biden can definitely send out stimulus checks if he's done it before. Now, the nearly 1.9 million borrowers who paid off their loans during the pause and those who refinanced their student loans during the pause into private loans do not qualify for the automatic stimulus check. Yes, people are getting automatic stimulus checks because in August, Biden extended the pause on repayment, interest, and collections, which began back in March 2020. And according to the Office of Federal Student Aid, about 9 million federal student loan borrowers have made at least one check and one payment to April 20 to March 2022 of this year. So the application for loan forgiveness will become available in October, next month. Borrowers are expected to advise and apply before November 15th in order to receive a check before the end of the year. And we all know how important it is for people to receive the stimulus check. So hopefully President Biden can do something about this and help out the American people. Guys, it is here. President Biden can finally do something for the American people that's valuable, and that's sending out stimulus checks before the end of the year. A stimulus check of $2,000 or even $1,400 has to be approved by December of 2022 if President Biden has any hope of making the American people happy. Now everybody, the whole goal of this channel is to provide you with the most up-to-date, reliable stimulus check information, from anything on stimulus aid, relief assistance, low-income benefits, Social Security benefits, and as well as stimulus check news. I'll always
take this opportunity to wish everybody a very happy holiday season and a wonderful new year. And what I wanted to discuss very briefly with you is the fact that I will soon be assuming the chairmanship of the U.S. Senate's Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee, one of the most important committees in the Congress. And as I move into that position, which has very broad jurisdiction over many of the major issues facing our country, let me tell you what's on my mind and what kind of committee I would like to lead. And I also want at this moment to ask for your help, because in the final analysis, as I think most of you know, real change never comes from the top on down, not from Washington to the rest of the country. It always comes from the bottom on up, when millions of people at the grassroots level stand up and fight for what they need. But let me say a few words now about some of the issues that we will be dealing with. And let me start off with our dysfunctional...
Good news, everybody. So, if you want the most up-to-date information has been released by the IRS, and lawmakers are actually working on making some big changes that will affect inflation and the current cost of living adjustment, meaning that many of you guys could expect to receive a stimulus check in a couple of days. So here are some new details on what the federal government is doing right now. Right now, Americans are hoping for wage gains to offset the hottest inflation in 40 years, but there are a number of factors that can impact your take-home pay in 2023. And because inflation is rising so sharp, the IRS and other agencies are changing many rules to account for the increase in prices. For instance, the tax agency said this week that it's boosting its 2023 tax brackets by 7% because of inflation. This is a move designed to avoid bracket creep, which is when people get pushed into higher tax rates because of cost of living salary adjustments, although their standard of living hasn't even changed. And the IRS is also increasing the standard deduction by the same percentage, which will benefit most taxpayers who use this tax break. Inflation adjustments to tax brackets mean it will be harder for taxpayers to hit those higher brackets, and therefore we'll have more income taxed at lower rates next year. So what does this mean for you? Well, the interplay is that these changes is complex, but the upshot is that many low and middle income taxpayers may be able to trim their taxes as a result. The outlook is more complicated for higher income workers because of an inflation adjusted boost in the cap for Social Security taxes. According to a recent survey for 2023, employers plan to roughly offer their workers an annual raise of 4%. That's roughly in line with the median pay bump that employees got in 2022. The problem is that inflation this year has been running at about twice the rate. Folks, we finally have some breaking news surrounding the fourth stimulus payment. So welcome back to my channel, everybody. This is your fourth stimulus check update and daily news report.
Of cutting Social Security benefits. And as far as I'm concerned, never on my watch will that happen. We made a promise. We made a promise that you work hard, that you pay into this system, and that it would be there for you. And we cannot make it break America's promise to our seniors.
Now, Senator Bernie Sanders, chair of the Senate Budget Committee, drafted a $6 trillion infrastructure package that Senate Democrats are considering approving without GOP support. That's according to people familiar with the matter. But Senator Sanders is pushing for aggressive federal action to overhaul the economy. After a meeting with Senate Democrats, Bernie Sanders said, "We have an enormous amount of work in front of us." Bernie Sanders talked about federal intervention on things like climate change, affordable housing, and the urgency to level the playing field for average families. Bernie Sanders also stated that Democratic efforts to approve a pipeline bill and reconciliation would commence within weeks. "We expect to have a whole lot done in July," he said. A spokesperson for the Senate Budget Committee declined to comment, but Senator Sanders later told reporters that he is seeking a certain amount of spending. The bottom line here is this country faces crisis. Working families are struggling, and it's about time we paid attention to their needs. Now if you folks agree with Bernie Sanders and his push for more stimulus payments, then let's get this video to 1,000 likes.
A foundation for future American prosperity for years and decades to come through smart and bold investments in our nation's infrastructure. As I've said for weeks, the discussions about infrastructure legislation continue.
Reconciliation is a legislative tactic that only requires 51 votes, though it involves strict budgetary rules. Sanders said this week